Sorry.
All right, a little technical difficulty, but the time is now 6:01 p.m. and I'll call to order this regularly scheduled McMinnville Fire District Board of Directors meeting on Thursday, October 26th at 6:01 p.m. And I'll call on interim chief Hannah for a roll call.
Director Sparrow. Secretary Pratt.
Here.
Treasurer Traff.
Here.
Vice President Smith.
Here.
President Garvin.
Here. And that takes us to Pledge of Allegiance, and I'll call on Secretary Pratt to lead us on the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for that.
Certainly.
All right, brings us to IV, changes to the agenda. Nothing that I'm aware of. Consent agenda, we have meeting minutes from our last board meeting, 10/19. Entertain a motion for anybody to approve the consent agenda with the minutes from last week's meeting.
I went over them closely and compared them to mine. They're perfect as always, so I recommend we approve them.
Second that.
All right, we have a motion by Secretary Pratt and a second by Vice President Smith for the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That takes us to our financial report, which we don't have at this time. So now we're moving on to public comment. This is a part of the meeting where citizens can make public comment regarding district business not to exceed 3 minutes. I do have one public comment card here in person. If you'd like to make a comment on Zoom, raise your hand, and after our in-person comments, we'll call on Chief Law to unmute you and let you make your comments. First up for our in-person comment, we have Dennis Gex regarding the future direction of the district. And Dennis, if you could just state your first and last name and the city you live in. State your full address for the record.
This in order. Name is Dennis Gex. My address is 14325 Northwest Pheasant Hill Road, rural McMinnville, and a member of this district.
Thank you. What do you have for us tonight?
Okay, I sent the email in, and I see it's posted in the back here.
Yep.
So I guess I wanted to look at you and ask you 3 questions and see if you're at a point yet where you've made decisions on them. The first one has to do with this idea of a balanced plan to really being pushing this district in the area of a balance between paid and volunteer, where we have the kind of volunteer situation that I can remember from the past. I know that the intern chief's background is from this area, as I understand, coming up through from the volunteer ranks. And I'm wondering if there's any specific plans being made to really try to push for that balance here in this district.
Okay, and what's your other 2 questions?
Second question. I believe that it's extremely important that by board directive, you set aside 50 cents per thousand of the money that's coming in for new facility and equipment, that it not be available for operations. If you don't set that aside, it'll just end up disappearing. And you'll be coming back, maybe not next year, but the year after, and you'll be asking for facility and equipment money above and beyond the $2. And that's a heavy hit right now for a lot of people. I guess we're feeling it more in the rural area because in the city, they didn't get hit quite as hard this first year. They haven't taken advantage of all the taxing capability they have, but it's a heavy hit. And the third thing is the substation out on Hill Road. Really believe it's important to get one going out there. I think it's going to take a board member to champion it. Things like that don't just happen because somebody wants it to happen. It happens because there's someone who has the integrity behind them of the board, pushing and trying to work through an approach that has a chance. When that S was straightened out on Hill Road, that piece of property that just sort of developed out there was deeded over to Hillside Manor. Hillside Manor now is a nonprofit. It just has new ownership. They have a lady out there now who's the new director. And I believe if a member of this board who had a really strong urge to see that happen went out and visited with those folks, they could put together an arrangement that could make for a pretty good substation out there. And I think that would cause a lot of issues to kind of get a whole lot more mellow. One being the number of calls you get from the retirement communities for ambulance support, where in the past it's been said, well, they should have had the people on staff to do it there. If someone from the retirement community got involved, like that nonprofit, for example, in helping this to come to be, they'd not only have ambulance and fire service very, very close to their area, but there could be maybe even the development of a friends of sort of thing, folks involved in really making that thing work.
All right, Dennis, you're at 4 minutes. Do you have any closing thoughts?
That's it.
Okay. As this time is time for us to gather information for citizens from public comment, I'll respond to your email more in depth.
Okay.
It'll be similar in nature to my last email that addressed that a substation is not in our 12-month plan and never has been. And it was
I
never
understand that.
on.
I'm just looking for a board member that has kind of a bug under their saddle that would really like to see that happen.
Yeah,
I could even work with it.
we as a board are very consensus in nature that we want to move through a strategic plan and standards of cover and feasibility of where a location will be put. And we're going to do that through active current data and not relying on data from our 2018 feasibility study, which is what the ESCI study was built on and what we campaigned on. So we need current data and not 5-year-old data before we go out and make a real estate transaction.
You got my input.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other public comments from the audience tonight? Hearing none, we'll move to Zoom. I did see community member Janet Redmond on. I don't know if she wanted to make a comment tonight or not. All right. Anybody else on Zoom would like to make a public comment tonight? Seeing none, we'll now close public comment and move on to our regularly scheduled business action required items, which brings us to item A, resolution 2023-13 to authorize public services contract for ambulance billing. And I'll call on Chief Hannafin to brief us on that.
Thank you. Included in your packet was a memo that outlines the intermediate procurement process that we performed for ambulance billing services. We've listed out costs and essentially all of the requirements of any of the ambulance billing companies that we would need to see. All of the costs that you see are calculated at about $52.80. Those were the number of calls that we've billed over the last year. We've been working with Systems Design West. We went through a process here about 4 years ago, I believe, and evaluated several different companies and chose to go with Systems Design West at that time. They have been very efficient, have provided good customer service, and are ready to move us forward in a lot of the transition that would need to occur to move over from the city to the district, taking on much of the work that our staff would not necessarily have to take on. The recommendation tonight would be that we would authorize a public service contract for ambulance billing to Systems Design West after having done the procurement process.
Thank you for the briefing. Any questions for interim chief Hannafin regarding ambulance billing or the resolution before us tonight?
I do have an issue on the exhibit number 1 attachment. It still shows outside of city limits to be outside of district.
Thank you. That was in a resolution that was passed earlier this fall, so we'll have to address that separately. But thank you for pointing that out.
Other than that, I'm good with it.
Just to clarify that, we'll have a rate for, even if you're a P-Vine, you're gonna pay the same as if you're closer to, like, radius wise.
So the resolution that was passed previously is what's reflected in Exhibit 1. If you want to do something different, then we would need to address that separately. So the resolution that's passed currently does show a base rate outside of the city limits and then a rate inside of the city limits.
Is there, since you brought it up, Secretary Pratt, is there a desire to have somebody up Powerhouse pay the same rate as somebody off St. Andrews Drive?
I realize that it does cost us more to run out that far, but I think it's one of the benefits the rural people would get from the fire district, is we kept them the same as within the city.
Okay. Vice President Smith, any thoughts?
Agree.
And Treasurer Trask, any thoughts on that?
I agree. I think that would be a benefit of them joining to be a part of the fire district.
Okay, so we'll have, we need to bring back a resolution, to amend that at our next meeting, which is the 9th of November, I believe, off the top of my head.
Yes.
And we'll be amending that Exhibit 1 of ordinance 23-02 to basically have inside fire district limits, McMinnville Fire District limits, and outside McMinnville Fire District limits for the remainder of our ASA.
Mhm.
Given that, can we adopt this ambulance billing contract or?
We could adopt it with exception of Exhibit 1 needing to be updated so that they can start moving forward on the business aspect of transitioning all of our Medicare and Medicaid, and that should be something that we can add back in. It's not necessarily something that they would need to be able to move forward.
Okay. Is that something that you're comfortable with? or-
I am, yeah.
Okay. Is that something you're comfortable with, Treasurer Trask, that will move forward with adopting our service providers so they can start building out the system for the January 1 transition? But at our November 9th meeting, we'll bring back Exhibit 1 to solidify inside district boundary and outside district boundary regards to the ASA.
Absolutely. Sounds great.
All right, thank you. So hearing that, I'll entertain a motion for resolution 2023-13 with removal of Exhibit A, which will come back at a later date.
Make a motion to adopt resolution 2023-13 and with that revisit Exhibit A at a later date.
I second that.
Our Exhibit 1, right?
Exhibit 1.
Exhibit 1.
Exhibit 1.
Exhibit 1.
Second that, Ray?
I second that.
All right, so we have a motion by Treasurer Trask and a second by Secretary Pratt. In regards to resolution 2023-13 with removal of Exhibit 1. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed by nay? Resolution passes 4-0. Thank you, Chief Hannafin.
Thank you.
That brings us to item B, which is resolution 2023-14 to authorize a memorandum of understanding between the McMinnville Fire District and the McMinnville Professional Firefighters Local 3099. I believe we have HR Director Hedges on to brief us on this.
Thank you. As you stated, this MOU is being brought forward tonight to transfer the collective bargaining agreement with the local that's currently between the city and the local, transfer it to the district and the local. The MOU contains provisions, several provisions. Many have to do with transfer of leave and establishing benefits with the new district. There's a lot there. I can go through each one. Do you have a preference?
I think first we had an extensive executive session on this, so I just call on the board if they have any questions or concerns, discussion they would like to ask of other board members or Director Hedges.
The only question I have is, were we able to determine the total cost?
Yes. Sorry, I was not prepared for that question, so give me just 1 second. So you had the cost for the insurance, which was detailed. Do you want me to go back over the insurance costs?
We covered that last time. It was the other pieces that were missing, and I was wondering if you give me a total cost of the packet.
Just need a little bit more clarification. So there's the insurance, and then there was the bilingual pay incentive, which was an increase. Were there other pieces you want costing for?
What I'm trying to get at is what it's hard to. I fully support this 100%. I think I made that clear last time. The concern I have is not knowing what it costs makes it difficult to buy something, not knowing what it costs is challenging. So do we know what the total cost is of contract?
There's the cost of the insurance, which you said you've gone over, and then the only other real cost in this MOU is the bilingual pay incentive. So there's about, sorry, I didn't hear that.
There's no additional question. He was curious.
Oh, okay. So it just depends where employees test at what that cost could be, but I guess the increase for the bilingual incentive could be up to $5,000. That would be my estimate.
Okay, and I have the cost that we talked about at executive for the healthcare. So thank you.
All right, any further questions from Secretary Pratt or Treasurer Traff? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve resolution 2023-14 to authorize the MOU between the McMinnville Fire District and McMinnville Professional Firefighters Local 3099.
I'd make a motion that we adopt resolution 2023-14, authorize a MOU between McMinnville Fire District and the McMinnville Professional Firefighters Union Local 3099.
All right, we have a motion by Vice President Smith and a second.
Second.
And a second by Treasurer Traff. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously 4-0.
And Director Pratt, that was a second by Director Sparrow.
Oh,
It's back.
I didn't know you joined the meeting. Sorry.
No problem.
So we have a motion by Vice President Smith and a second by Director Sparrow. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? Motion passes, our resolution passes 5-0. Were you here for the last resolution, Director Sparrow?
Yes.
And you voted on that one too?
That is correct.
Need to update our.
Resolution 2023-13 passes 5-0. For the record, Director Sparrow, when did you join the meeting? Were we still in public comment or consent agenda?
No, it was during the discussion of the last
Resolution?
resolution.
Oh, yes.
614.
Thank you. That brings us to other business this evening. If you have an update, please share. The first would be board committee and liaison reports. And first up would be Treasurer Trapp regarding LoSAP.
Yes, I have nothing new regarding LoSAP for this meeting.
All right, thank you, Treasurer Trapp. Which
pleasure.
brings us to item 2, which is our branding committee, and that's Director Sparrows. Anything?
Nothing new to report.
Okay. And that brings us to board information reports. Does anybody have anything that's not in committee that you want to report out on? Hearing none, I will give a brief update that we're still in process of our fire chief contract negotiations as outlined in our October 13th executive session. And moving forward with those under the parameters outlined in the resolution that we all passed unanimously exiting that meeting. And hope to have some resolution on that here by the end of the week.
I would like to make a motion that we suspend the current hiring process for the fire chief, that we meet an executive to review the negotiations process as well as the proposals, and that we have the opportunity to make amendments if we think it's necessary. And that we include Roy Vestio at that meeting.
From my conversation with legal today, that's not really on the table with the resolution that the board passed that on October 13th.
I spoke to a few people today as well, and it's the advice I'm getting is it's in order for us to meet and confer about the negotiations process as well as the proposals.
Do you retain legal counsel? Because I spoke to our district legal counsel.
No, I did not.
Okay. Well, our retained district legal counsel advised me that we either restart the whole entire chief's process or we move forward with what we already adopted.
What was his rationale for that?
His rationale for that is we had a public process that we made a public job description and we negotiate a contract within that public job description. And we
So
adopted a resolution unanimously as a board for the board president and the HR director to negotiate that contract. We've also included Roy in that process.
so what were the parameters that were provided?
He also advised me not to discuss any outside of that executive session, because we throw out the legal standing of that executive session if we discuss that this evening.
That I agree. I understand that part. What I'd like to do is for us to meet an executive so we can review the proposals that are on the table. And I think the intent of this board was to empower you to negotiate a fair and reasonable wage benefit package with the chief the person that we had selected as fire chief.
Which has been done.
Which has been done, but what I'd like to do is make sure that we don't have verification because we've not been part of that process. And we don't know where things are at. So what I want us to do is be able to meet and confer as a board with the appropriate people in the room and review the negotiation process as well as the proposals.
That's outside the bounds of a resolution that's already been passed for negotiations for this process, Vice President Smith.
Would you allow it as a point of personal privilege?
No, because we've negotiated in good faith within the parameters set forward by that board, which I'm happy to share afterwards through this chief's hiring process.
Okay.
I have not gone outside our job description, and I have not gone outside the wishes of the board in that executive session and the salary range that was defined in that executive session.
I guess I was also confused, Mr. President, that we would not be conferred with as a board on what that proposal was and what that contract that was negotiated was, and then vote on it.
That resolution we voted on was very, very specific on what you guys wanted done, and that is what is happening. So trying to start
Did
processes.
it not?
And you voted on.
Did it not say to negotiate the contract?
It said quite a bit of things. Director Sparrow, do you have a copy of it?
I'd have to look it up.
So are you guys wishing to restart the fire chief hiring process and further push this district out?
That is not my intent.
Nor mine. But my intent, as I stated, was that the intent of the fire board was to offer a fair wage and benefit package to the next fire chief, right? And I don't know if we've done that because I haven't had a chance to see what it is. And I want the board to meet and consider what's on the table and provide some feedback and maybe make some changes if we deem that as necessary. That's what I'm asking for.
I understand that.
Okay.
And we're operating under the parameters set forward in the executive session of our hiring process. If we're going to change that process, it is a legal counsel's directive to throw out the entire process and start over. Is that what you would like to do?
No, that's not what I'd like to do. No. Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion on the current status of our chief hiring process? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to the next item on our agenda, which is department reports, and first up will be Local 3099.
Nothing from us tonight, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, President. Next, we have our Volunteer Firefighters Association, and I don't see anybody in the audience regarding them.
You texted me no updates.
All right, and that brings us to our Fire Chief's report, starting with payroll.
Yes, we recently went through a process to identify out a payroll company. Staff went through, actually Chief Law was very involved in that as well. Looked at 3 different companies. The company that we've recommended and moved forward is GNSA. Several different fire entities in the area are using them currently. They've had great onboarding experience and have been very accessible as far as customer service goes. Also very familiar with fire schedules, which can be a bit challenging when you get into some of the different payroll companies. We've moved forward with them, and the total price of their contract is about $11,000. And along with payroll, we're also moving forward with our accountant that we had secured, and she's getting things set up as far as kind of the framework of QuickBooks and being able to onboard. So we feel like it's a very good space as far as both payroll and accounting go, and being able to be ready to move forward on January 1st with those pieces.
And has either one of them voiced any concern of the realistic nature of January 1st, or if they?
Not that I
know the
heard, no.
accountant was pretty adamant it's not going to be an issue, but.
Yeah, no, we're in a really good space. We've been working with her. She's got some training identified out for staff. We're moving forward at a good pace with both, I believe.
Okay.
McMinnville Rural Fire Protection District update. They are quickly working through the final pieces of their dissolution. We took into possession several office type supplies, The chair, Steve Leonard, has been very thorough and is being very diligent about ensuring that they're getting all the pieces done that they need to get done. Their group will be meeting on October 31st to finalize a statement of dissolution. That statement then needs to go on to several different state and county entities, including the Department of Revenue. And he's been making sure that we're thorough on getting all of those pieces done and up to date. We also have transitioned over the funds from both an LGIP account and then a First Federal account that they had set up. And I have those numbers if you like them, but they have been able to move that forward. We did make the decision that the district will pay for the audit that will need to be done on the rural district, and then any other closing costs that might come along with. His concern was leaving the money within their fund and having to pay for those items versus transitioning them over and then us just taking that on. So we felt that it made most sense to move forward with that. That's in a good space. Any questions on the rural?
So all the money's been transferred into our accounts, because I know we're doing a small number and then a larger number.
Right.
So
Yep. Mhm.
sounds good.
Yep. Board policies. I know that we had kind of set it out early on that we would be reviewing board policies every meeting. We do have a handful more. With the other resolutions that we had on tonight's agenda, we felt that we could save the board policies for November meeting when we had a little bit less hearty agenda to work through and kind of the turnaround time that some of those things took. We are approaching Christmas time, and many of you may be familiar with the fact that we have a volunteer and actually career supported Christmas program. We support about 250 to 300 children in the community. I don't know if any of you have been in the station recently when we do that. Typically that takes over this room and the museum. And so we are currently working through a plan for what it will look like to be able to continue to hold these meetings within the station, as well as supporting the Christmas program. It might look like a short time of moving into the back room for these meetings, but we can talk further about what that might look like logistically, just to make sure that we're able to.
Yep, understood.
All right. That's all.
Any other chiefs reports tonight from other chiefs in the room? No. All right, that brings us to correspondence. I did share with staff the email we got from Mr. Geck, so that's in our amended packet. Another correspondence that I received between our last meeting and now was Mr. Dave Hagenberg, who's championed our bypass efforts with Newburgh and Dundee. Has asked us as a new entity that uses a lot of that infrastructure, if we would be willing to sign on as a supporter of that. All the cities from Brown Round Tribal up through the corridor have signed on, and there's a big presentation coming up before our next board meeting. And so he was asked if we would be willing to sign on as a supporter with the city of McMinnville, city of Dundee, city of Newburgh. I'm unsure if Walton Valley signed on to that, but Dave could speak to that. I invited him here tonight if we had any questions of it. But my personal feelings is it's a good effort, and it's something that we should support with the amount of transports we send up north. This is for 2A. From my knowledge, all the right of way has been secured, and we're just kind of working on getting some final pieces in play. So I think with us being another big player, they would just give that little extra nudge of support. And I would open it up for the board of any questions of Dave. And I'd also, after we ask questions, if Dave has anything to share in addition before we give the nod.
Well, I'll be very brief. I'm chair of the Ambulance County Parkway Committee. It's our job to promote, implement, and ultimately we've raised the $300 million to build the part of the bypass is built so far. We've got a legislative hearing coming, and public support is critical to getting the funding to continue. I mean, let's face it, finishing the bypass Dayton to Dundee, for example, what a critical component of transportation for this entity when you meet and dealing with emergencies and so forth. And I can tell you other fire districts have been on board. We've got multiple cities, counties, all the way from here to the coast. I can list them all for you. But the thing that really matters when you sit down with a legislative committee on transportation is who are your key big supporters? And the list goes on, and it would be a real plus to have this new entity that's got a huge jurisdictional issue area to sign on as a supportive of transportation infrastructure. And the bypass, goes from all the way from Rex Hill to Lowe's. That's all part of the Highway 18 bypass. But we've also been involved in the past, the improvements from here towards the coast. So with that, I'll just say, any questions?
I guess just for a point of clarity for other members of the board, you're not asking for any money for this, you're just.
No money, no letters, just we would like to put your name on the supporters of this project and put it on this long list.
Any questions or concerns from the board? On Zoom, Treasurer Trapp or Director Sparrow, do you have any concerns with adding our name to the list of supporters of other regional partners?
No, I do not.
No. None here.
Okay. Is that a nod?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's great.
Okay,
Yeah.
Sounds good.
thank
All right.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Put us down on your list.
We'll try to get your highway done as soon as we can. It's not easy, but appreciate the support. Thank
Anything to cut down that transport time.
you.
Anything to cut down the transport time. Thank you. That brings us to item C, informational items. All right, and with that, that brings us to item D, which is our next regularly scheduled Board of Directors meeting of the McMinnville Fire District is Thursday, November 9th, 2023 at 6 p.m. or 1800 hours, and I'll adjourn tonight's meeting at 6:38 p.m.